G'day ladies and gents, and welcome back to War Thunder. Thank you for being very patient with me. I've been away over the past few weeks and haven't been able to upload any videos because I've been staying with family. I'm down the coast for some uni work. I will be back soon, but in the meantime here, have this video. I've managed to find some spare time, managed to find a quiet few minutes so I can go and record. And here we are, in the thickest way to have fun in War Thunder. Yes, the thickest and probably most autistic way to have fun in the whole game. This is the Javelin, and the Javelin is well renowned in War Thunder, especially by now, as a plane that is utter garbage. But it's not complete garbage. It's not a complete write-off. You don't want to throw this thing away and never touch it again. In fact, if you play this plane properly, you kind of want to come back to it. I've covered this plane a fair bit on the channel. I've done maybe 2 or 3 videos on this plane already, and this will probably be number 4. But at this point in War Thunder, the meta at 9.0, 8.7 has changed about 3 or 4 times. You've had that original introduction of Supersonic, where the Javelin was first in its meta. Obviously not the meta, but its little sort of niche was sitting in a corner and crying. The next sort of step we have is when it gets down tier to 8.7 and you get a little bit of battle rating decompression. This was when the Javelin was probably at its best. It was seeing 7.7s a lot, and it was actually a fairly fair matchmaker. The Javelin is one of those jets that I like to call a 1000 jet, meaning that it goes around 1000 kilometers per hour, and it sort of has that energy retention and those characteristics of an 8.0 to 9.0 jet. Now, fast forward about 6 or 7 months, and you have the current meta that we're sort of sitting in right now. And that is another meta where you want to sit and cry in a corner. 9.7 every single game. Well, not every single game. Some of these games I've played in the Javelin and gotten down tiers. This, I believe, is one of them where I go to 8.0, which is very, very lucky, and it doesn't happen very often. But when it does, it is really, really good fun. Now, the Javelin itself is a fairly decent plane if it was 8.3. If it was 8.3, I would consider it to be a fairly workable piece of machinery. But unfortunately, it sits at sits at a battle rating where it can face 9.7s. Now, I'm going to go into this engagement with a Meteor here, and he's noticed that I'm around, so he's going to turn, and that would make him a very smart man. So I'm going to go and pick another target, and that's this MiG-15 here. He's chasing down that F2H Banshee. Is F2H? Or yes, I believe it is. I can't read. Anyway, I'm going to go and spray him down a little bit. I miss, and you can see I'm starting to go up in a vertical. Have a look at my speed. I'm dropping a lot of speed, and the Meteor here, whilst it's really, really slow, it can still catch me if I'm not careful. A MiG-17 jumps in behind me, and again, I have to be very vigilant as to who is behind me. Now, I'm going to spray a little bit, clip the MiG-15, and then I get the missile lock, but I can't really do anything about it because I have people on my tail. It was smart for the MiG-15 to sort of do a split S there and go underneath his teammates, which would have been hard for me. I would have needed to somehow pull some speed out of nowhere, and the Javelin just doesn't do that. I've got a Meteor now behind me, and I'm going to put myself up into a little bit of a vertical. The afterburning engines on the Javelin allow it to, eke out that little bit more speed than the Meteor can, and that's what I'm putting to use here. Now, the Meteor does get distracted, and I go right around to try and help out this 262. I believe that may be a C1A or a C2B. I can't quite remember what it is, but now you can see he's starting to get swarmed, and this is a really bad situation, especially for something like a 262 that doesn't really turn and relies on that acceleration from the boosters. It's not going to be a good time for him. And unfortunately at this point, me as a Javelin cannot gain enough speed to really be of any help. Now, speaking of being help, this is what I can do best. That MiG-17 looks like he could do with a little firestreak, and this Seahawk 100 here, he manages to pull out of me just in time. The MiG-15 is looking pretty juicy as well, so I'm going to send him one my way, and there it goes. A nice, easy 2 kills. This kind of situation, it's pretty perfect for a MiG-15 to go and get themselves yeeted by a Javelin. But what's not fun is a 163, and this particular battle shows exactly the weakness of the 163. Now, the Javelin is really fat, but it does have a delta wing, and it does mean that it is able to sustain those lower speed dogfights a little bit better than some other jets. The big kicker here, though, is the acceleration. Now, the Javelin loses a lot of speed and dumps it very quickly, but the 163 holds onto it, and I can use that to my advantage because I have this F-86A Sabre. Now, keep him in mind for a little bit later. This guy, apparently, he says he's a follower of mine, and he stuck with me for a bit of the game. He also basically baited me a few kills, and for that, I'm extremely grateful. Now, you can see here, here's the first one, and he's managed to sort of bait in this 163. And it turns out I have potato blood in my veins. I just could not land the shot, and that's extremely embarrassing. Don't look, kiddies. But I managed to sort of get behind him again, and you can see that whilst I'm not able to, strictly speaking, outturn a 163, the 163 isn't exactly turning with me and only me, he's turning with the A5 Sabre as well. So if you can make a plane watch out for both, or at least force them to take into consideration more than one aircraft, you're probably going to be able to outturn your opponent in situations that you otherwise wouldn't in, say, a 1 versus 1. Keep that in mind for when you have multiple enemies on your 6, but also keep that in mind for when you and your squad mates are playing, because you can really utilize that. And that's something that I've often used and will continue to use, just because it is such a good method. Now, this MiG-15 here gets distracted, I think, by the A5 or by the missile. I can't quite tell, but he does pull a really sensible maneuver, and he's sort of turned away and up. Now, the A5 Sabre is a good plane, but it cannot sustain a vertical maneuver with a MiG-15. And the MiG-15 is exploiting that, and is at the same time able to get away from my missile. Now, I'm really, really worried about MiG-15s up above me in a Javelin, because they can out-accelerate me in most cases, and they can outturn me if they get the drop on me. They're about as maneuverable. They're very, very close in maneuverability at most speeds. And that's really concerning for me. So I need to go and get some speed. While my teammate here in the A5 is sort of distracting him, I'm going to be getting a bit of speed, and then I'm going to turn around and try and come back into the battle. Now, the Javelin does one thing really, really poorly, and that is accelerate and retain energy. It just does not have that ability. But if I can potentially get a shot, then I can really make it count and pull myself another kill. This MiG-15 decides he wants to go for a straight line, pick up a little bit of speed, so I'm going to send the firestreak his way, and he's going to turn out of the way for it. Very smart maneuver. However, the A5 is right behind him and is starting to spray into him, so he's got to make a decision. Does he turn or does he stay fast? And he turns and pays the price with Aiden cannons. You just can't go wrong with Aidens, especially if they're nose mounted, but in this case they're wing mounted. And notice a couple of subtle things that I do. The Javelin, because it has wing mounted cannons, you have to be really aware of where you aim your wings. And when I say that, I mean put your wings at a 90 or parallel to the flight path of your opponent. So consider, say, the lead marker, and just line yourself up with the imaginary lead marker that you might draw when you're leading your guns. That, for me, really helps to get the shots on target, because then there's no vertical spread. There's only horizontal spread, which actually makes your life easier when you aim the Javelin. I really, really like using that sort of tactic. Anyway, forwarding on, I land and repair because my ammunition is out, and I just want more thickness. I just need those fire streaks in my life. They are very fun to use, but they're tough to make work in a situation where you have an aware opponent. When you can stall them out and then just yeet and dab on them with a fire streak, then sure. But if you don't have that, if you have someone like this MiG-15 you'll see in a moment, it's really hard to actually get a kill without someone else doing some work for you. And this is where my teammate again will come into play. I'm here fighting this MiG-15, and he's going to play it very passively. I'm very, very tempted to call it chicken. He's very, playing very, very conservatively. And I really don't like it when people do that, but each to their own. It's not really my playstyle. It's not the way I would fight. It's almost cowardly, sort of running back to your AA like that. But you know what? I don't really know what to call it. But I'm going to make it work. I'm going to try and get this kill and try and take him out. There is also a Seahawk on the board, and the Seahawk, I believe, is taking off at this point, or is at least in the air. I have to be careful not to put myself in a situation where the Seahawk or the MiG-15 is going to come up from behind me and take me out while I'm dealing with the other one. And you can see here the MiG-15 is well and truly over his airfield, going straight back towards me. I believe he's going to take a head-on, but I really don't want to take big fat head-ons. And you can see I'm going to start to lead my guns and aim them properly. I don't turn the wings 90 degrees like I probably should, but I miss anyway. It doesn't make a difference. And the Seahawk is right below me. Now, I have to keep an eye on both. However, spotting system says no, and the Seahawk disappears beneath me, which is okay, but I'm really starting to panic here. This is the first time in a long time that my heart has been in my chest whilst playing War Thunder. I don't normally, because I'm normally, fairly confident and fairly experienced, but it's always nice to have a bit of an adrenaline rush. Anyway, the Seahawk doesn't really see me and then decides to go into the vertical, which is really stupid. You should always keep your speed in jets, and I've always said this, and I will continue to say it. Keep your speed in jets, even if it's a slow jet. If you can be fast in a slow jet, that is better than being sort of slow in a jet that can turn or anything like that. Now, onto the dogfight with the MiG-15. I come very close to ramming my plane there, and it's going to be a tough fight. The MiG-15 can retain so much energy in a stall and in a climb and at altitude. And this is starting to concern me. Now, he's going back to his airfield again, which again is starting to get on my nerves, if you will. But the A5 Sabre is going to come in and is going to give me a hand. Now, the A5 Sabre is good for speed. It is a lot faster than you might think, and is about the same speed as the MiG-15 in a straight line. Now, in this case, he's got an altitude advantage, and so he probably won't be able to outrun the MiG-15. But you know what? We're going to give it a damn good shot, and it seems like the MiG-15 wants a piece of the Javelin. He wants that thickness, you know what I'm saying? Instead of going for me, he's going to, go for a cheap head-on. That's fine. And then he's going to go straight for the A5 Sabre. The A5 Sabre oofs it into the MiG-15, and we call it a day. It's not too bad, that's not a bad result. It's not great that the A5 Sabre couldn't save himself or couldn't avoid the head-on, but that's one of the reasons why I say don't commit to the head-ons. Nonetheless, he still finished the game for us, and we still have one more player left on the board, being me. So, at the end of the day, does it really matter? I'd say as long as you're having fun, it's all good. And we've got ourselves a nice little ace in the Javelin to go on YouTube. So, I don't know. I think that's a pretty big win for me. Anyway, the Javelin. This is the single thickest way to have fun in War Thunder. I don't really get massive games in the Javelin, but when I do, it's always ridiculously fun. And in fact, the Javelin is a fun plane to fly overall. Anyway, ladies and gents, thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you next time.